had even, the girl in P3 had even actually forgotten how to use a pen.
Oh dear.
She had forgotten how to use a pen. The handwriting had changed. They had forgotten some of the things they had learned. But at least when we did some coaching, some online learning, they are kind of getting back. But that is for a typical person, or for me as a parent. Now,
Yeah.
what of those learners or daughters and sons that are in some rural areas that online teaching, coached? So I feel they are a bit pushed away from the fact that kids and they were safe, but it's been long. It's been long.
Thank you very much, Hajara. And I know it has been long, and I'm not sure how schools are going to deal with that, but we will get back to that conversation. We've been joined by Edith Nagujja, who is a teacher, and we've also been joined by Marion, who is a student at the call. You're very much welcome, ladies. And today we're discussing the reopening of schools, looking at parents, teachers, and student perspectives and preparedness. And so we've heard from Hajara, and maybe let's hear from Rebecca. You have a son, but I know that you're also a deputy parent of quite a number of children. How have the last 2 years been for you as a parent?
Could you repeat the question a bit again?
So I'm saying that the last 2 years, how have they been for you as a parent? Because I know that you have definitely been parenting over the last 2 years. What has education looked like for you, even before we go to the reopening of schools?
Thank you for that, Isabella. For us, with children from early childhood, the nursery section,
yes,
we've not really experienced a lot of emphasis put into the education system for us. We literally start to think that maybe our children are aliens, because now it's been more of us investing. Yeah, because they are considered that, their time, they're still young, they'll have enough time. That first we didn't go to nursery school, we started direct to primary. So there is that assumption that in 2022, we'll just keep kids from baby all the way to P1 like it was in the past. And it doesn't work that way. But also because this is a sensitive time in their growth, the COVID has in a way totally even made it hard for us to also see how to engage them better in education, because you can't also get an out support system to train them, considering the sensitivity of COVID and their age. But for me, looking forward, it's been a beautiful time to bond, understand children better, understand how they cope. This has been something that, for me, I wouldn't want to say COVID has literally disrupted everything totally. For the last 2 years, we've actually had enough time to understand our children better and reconnect with them, which for me was a blessing in disguise as well.
Okay, but let's go into what education has been like, and that's before you leave us, Rebecca. What has education been like for you who has an early childhood candidate? How have you coped with that? Have you become a teacher in your own right? How has that happened?
Yes, please. I think you broke out a bit. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm saying that you have an early childhood candidate, that is nursery school. What has education been like? And before the 2-year gap, what class was this person? And what happens in January? What class is this child going to?
So this is something that literally, I want to be honest, you haven't even thought of. Like you think and then you say pause, because when you see what the Ministry of Education has brought out, it literally starts from primary P1. They still have left that section of education.
Yeah.
When you look at
okay, so Rebecca seems to have left us on this call, and so I'm going to bring in Edith Nagujja, who is a teacher. Edith, what has education looked like in the last 2 years for you as a teacher?
nursery teaching. It's
Okay, so we've lost Rebecca. Edith, Nagujja, what has education looked like for you in this period?
Hello, Isabella. Good
Hello.
morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Yes, I don't know if it's my network or yours, but we are kind of missing you.
I think everyone's network is bad.
Okay,
Yes.
so kindly repeat for me the question.
I'm saying that during this period, what has education looked like for you as a teacher?
Well, I think it has really been bad, very bad, really bad, terribly bad, especially for schools, for private schools, for teachers in private schools. If you're to look at reality, Isabella, most of the teachers last got salary in probably March 2020. So it's been 2 years, closure of schools. Even when there was a reopening, not all of them were invited, not all of them were called to get back. So it hasn't been a nice, can I call it? It has been a struggle. Let me use that word, as much as I was trying to avoid it. Yes. As a teacher, as teachers, we've been through a lot, but it has also been a very good, gracious period because we've been able to, to learn a lot. We're put in a situation, and I thank God that somehow we're able to be in this situation. I think it was a blessing in disguise because we're able to be, as teachers, of course, we're always resourceful and industrious. We're able to, to get alternative ways of how we can earn, how we can support our families, what we can do. It was hard. We didn't know how to deal with it. And it comes worse to secondary school education because very few schools had students, to like go on, have these Zoom classes. I think some of them were international schools or they are, but if I'm to look at the schools in rural areas, I believe, you've been seeing online, you've been seeing on TV, most girls have been married off. So many girls have had babies and there has been a lot. So literally there was no studying at all for about 2 years. If you look at classes like senior 2 and senior 1 that had just reported for a month and sent back home after that. And so it has been an ugly picture. And when you look at it, most of like senior 2, they should be now in their senior 4 vacation, enjoying, looking at going for A level. So all this is traumatic, not just for the teachers, but also very traumatic for their parents, because they had to leave that. But to the teachers, it was bad. Most felt neglected, but I believe that some used that time to redirect their energy, to redirect their creativity into something else and start businesses. And I think so many schools should worry that teachers will actually get back. Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Edith. And you've taken us into the conversation on preparedness, and you've started with the preparedness of schools and the fact that a lot of teachers have now gone into business. I would like to invite Miss Hajara. How prepared are you as Exodus College School? Do you have teachers, or do you have a situation where a number of your teachers have actually gone into business and you're now in the process of looking for human resource?
Thank you so much. Surely, if I may first take you briefly, there are some teachers that have even gone out of the country. UAE, different countries. Many teachers have gone. We also have 2 of our staff who went out because they were not being paid school. However, speculations were moving on that schools may be open in January. What we did, we called our teachers. we called them to ask whether they are with us. And actually around 80% of them, either some business or something that they did to keep them going. So we are planning to have a meeting with them immediately after FAST. That's the arrangement we had made, to have a staff meeting to be sure to ascertain how many are with us. And we are also planning to have a capacity building workshop for them. Secondly, to make sure that in that capacity building, we also counsel them. Teachers need guidance and counseling. They need to be talked to change their attitude. Remember, we are talking to teachers who are not being paid, and they feel this was a source of their income, and they kind of feel they were being neglected in time of need. It could not, being that the source of income, the learners were at home. So we plan to counsel them, to talk to them, to change their attitude, to motivate them, and to promise that indeed, let us begin. This was a pandemic which was not brought by anyone, and this was a government policy. So we are doing a check. We have actually had an administrative meeting to make sure that we really plan for January. Still talking about that, we also had one of our admin resign, going for further, actually out also. So we advertised and did interviews to fill in the position. And surprisingly, teachers came in many, they applied. So despite the fact that teachers' attitude has changed, they are willing to come on to teach. And similarly, in different groups where I am, I've seen schools advertise, actually advertise that they have vacancies. But you see, there is a question mark when you see responses from teachers. They ask, where did the other teachers go? Why are you advertising? That means you are not paying them. You understand? So surely this is what we are doing to make sure that we keep ourselves prepared, or we be prepared by January 10th. Thank you.
Edith, are you with us? Oh, I know. Okay, I was unmuted. Edith, I'm asking, with the school that you are attached to, are you also facing the same challenges? Will you be able to absorb students when the school term opens in January?
Thank you, Isabella. And before I get to that, I just have a question for the last panelist, Hajara. Does she really think that counseling is going to get the right teachers on board? And yes, yes, there are many teachers. Many teachers will show up. Of course, schools like universities have been training. We have had several graduations. But what type of teachers do you want? I think she should think about that. And I am very positive that we are going to have our students back, but not all of them. But I don't think we are going to, I don't think we are going to lose a lot. As I'm talking on behalf of my school, I don't think we are going to lose a lot, because we have learners who are very willing to study, and even if they were very poor, and even if they were so poor, because we have very students from very not even middle income. It's a government aided school, but we have students who are actually on a scholarship of their member of parliament. And so I believe 80% are in that category. So I believe they're going to get back, because they really want to do better. They've received a lot of empowerment. And when it comes to our school, it's different because we always talk to our students. So I haven't got any negative intuition that they would not come back. Yes, so I believe students will come back. But when you look at it nationally, I do not think we are going to have so many students. I am one of the teachers who reported in the that was in, I think, early this year, to welcome senior twos, because that was my class and senior one. But we used to, you would be seeing a student, I'm a class teacher, but you'd find a child with a pocket money of 500,000. And this is a poor child. And this child is like, they even have already business ideas, especially the boys. It's like, madam, I want you to go and use this money. At the end of that term, I want you to put for me a certain percentage of money. So you can imagine a senior two, a senior one student thinking in that line. And then, of course, as teachers, you get, you have to ask, where did you get this money? Is it your school fees and all that? Like, no, I had a chapati business. I was selling sweet potatoes. I was doing this and that in town in Kampala. I used to, there is a lot, they were so industrious. And I told them, that is amazing. But remember, education comes first. And with those skills, you'll do much better. So I am very worried as a teacher when you look at our country, that looking at even the unemployment problem we have as a country. These are young people who have seen people who are highly educated without jobs. They have, and I think it's good that the ministry has now changed the system of education. They look at skills and all that, which is good. But when you look at what used to happen, they have questioned. You find a young child, someone you're teaching, is questioning you as a teacher. Why are you teaching me Canadian prairies? Huh? Why are you teaching me this and that? These are young people who are very smart, very resourceful. They have questioned our education system so many times. And they have been given opportunities to go out and hustle. They have understood the hustle, especially the children, especially the youth in rural areas. Those in urban centers will definitely go back to school, and they've been going to school. But Isabella, someone who has been selling matoke, and they've been able to buy goats, they've been able to buy their own motorcycle. I know so many students who have been border riders. I've seen them, I've supported them, like, come and take me here. It is going to be difficult for parents to take back such children to school when they see it is easier to earn money when you're in the informal sector compared even to the formal sector. Because as teachers, we don't really get enough salary. And these are smart kids. They see this, they know that. They know we don't get enough. They look at other professionals. They are also struggling in their own way. So a child who's not even able, you see the president has been promoting science subjects and science, everything scientific. So as a student who has seen all that, I doubt that child will go back to school. I doubt that boy or girl will go back to school. Instead, they will put energy. They will just redirect their energy and everything into that skill they have and make money. Because they've also seen people who have not gone to school become successful businessmen.
Thank you very much.
So yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. And in the chat section, Hajara says that, Edith, we are trying all avenues to try and change teachers' attitudes, although I know it's hard. And yes, like she says, it's hard, especially even with what you have said, because students are not the only people who have gone into business. Teachers have equally gone into business. I know of some teachers who as a result of homeschooling, and with the homeschooling and coaching they were probably earning much more money, which was untaxed, much more money than they were earning at school, and they were able to start up businesses. And so trying to get them to come back to, for lack of a better word, a very difficult environment of pay. And yet, just like the students, they have experienced this interesting life, I believe is equally difficult. But bringing in Marion, Edith and Hajara have talked about the challenges, both from a teacher's perspective in terms of preparedness, but also the one of students. And one, I think we have all been worried about the girl child and saying the girl child will not be able to go back because a lot of them have fallen pregnant. But from Edith's submission, it seems like we are probably also going to be losing the boy child to business. So there's this possibility that the children are just not going to come back to school. Okay, we will not all come back to school. But also, one, whereas schools doing their best, like Hajara has mentioned, and trying to attract teachers back, do you think that the government, through the Ministry of Education, are doing their best within the reality that one, girls have dropped out of school, two, as a result of pregnancy, two, boys have dropped out of school as a result of businesses, three, teachers have found new means of making money? Do you think that the ministry in opening schools is alive to this reality that is not normal, that is not going to be business as usual when we open up in January? Over to you, Marion.
I would say that I do not think the problem is that they're not aware. I think they're very aware, but probably it is not knowing what to do, but secondly, maybe the unwillingness of not doing what they can to support. The initiatives I've seen towards reopening schools perhaps has been reducing on the taxes of schools. I don't know how far it has gone. I'm not sure if maybe the teachers on the platform can tell us if the government has actually implemented that, because that's one of the initiatives that I saw. But that one only handles the expenses and maybe the financial costs that the schools incur. It doesn't really sort out the social and psychological dilemma that we find ourselves in as students and also as teachers. The way forward, it's hard to tell, because now let me start from maybe the teenage mothers. If people in government should find a way to, first of all, I think there has to be a preparing the schools first, psychologically or even socially, to handle teenage mothers, because we have seen in the past that usually when a girl gets pregnant, she's shunned, she becomes an outcast, even though she's bullied if she's ever allowed to come back to school. And with some religious schools, they keep on taunting her, you have to go to confession every day and atone for your sins. So the culture within schools towards teenage mothers has to change in order to get these girls back. But also the perception, you have to go on a whole sensitization campaign of the perception of parents towards their teenage mothers who are also their daughters, that you need to show them that irrespective of the fact that she has a child, she still has a right to education, and education benefits her. I think even for the boys, there has to be a sensitization of the sort. Like Edith said, people are questioning the relevance of education, and rightly so, especially education that we see. So you need to first get them to a point that, irrespective of what the pandemic has shown, education is still a viable and is still the most important vehicle of development and change and transformational change, especially in people's lives. But secondly, I also agree with Edith, the government has to take extra steps. Yes, they are transforming the curriculum,
but there has to be more done. This colonial kind of thing where we look at other people's economies and other people's climates has to stop. That we need to start looking at a education system that can solve the problems of Uganda, not the problems of Europe. So there has to be an overhaul, to me, which I don't see government doing. I don't know if it's able to put in the work. We have seen even the little efforts it has done has been due to a lot of advocacy, but there has to be a lot of work, and they can't do it alone. They need to have partners, they need to involve CSOs, because that goes to the heart of this community. You are getting people, and I would agree with Hajara that the mental health aspect has to come in, because psychologically, even when we talk about finances and the fact that that people have now been setting up their own businesses, all that, there has been a kind of depression in the community. There has been a mental breakdown in the community due to all the economic challenges that come to COVID. And that is why people have started questioning even the relevance of education. So you need to have a social psycho support in that line, that you're able to try to bring the community, especially mentally, back to the issue of education and its relevance in development. That even you start with the parents and then you go to the kids and tell them, yes, I know that you have started up a boda business, but however, there are other however, if you hang on to education, you can become more than a boda cyclist. You can become a doctor, you can become a lawyer and all that. But also, we need to start to as a government, and I'm talking about an overhaul. What value does it attach to these white collar jobs? What value does it attach to the teacher? What value does it attach to the doctors? That you cannot keep on encouraging people to get educated when you are attaching very little value to them. When we see intern doctors and doctors striking every day because of low pay, when we're seeing teachers on the streets, cooking granuts and always striking because they have little pay, that recently we have been seeing teachers going into swamps and baking bricks. That if government wants an educated population and more people to come back to school, they have to attach the value that is supposed to be accorded to these white collar jobs. Otherwise, there is I see a very big, there won't be much that it does. Just simply cutting taxes on schools will not be enough. There needs to be that socio-economic and psychological aspect to it. Attach value to these jobs. When you attach value to these jobs, you attract more people to get educated, Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Marion. And I know that you state that government should do better beyond the curriculum. But also, I would like to hear the detail of better beyond the curriculum, because we have, for example, a teacher. We have 2 teachers on this school and administrators on this school who are struggling. And so I'm going to come back to you on what that better looks like. And then I'm going to go to Hajara, and I'm going to ask, in light of the high school, the heavy and high level of school dropouts, but also the turnover of teachers, is there any plan by government to support schools, especially private schools, around this? Is that a conversation that you're having with government?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Isabella, can you hear me? Yes.
I can hear
Now,
you.
in regards, yes, about government role is it playing to make sure that normally is that when I was a statement, a Minister of Education and Sports, she highlighted on waiving taxes, or in terms of water bills, umeme, those schools that had loans. She talked about what the Bank of Uganda has done. It is very, very elaborate in her speech. Then still, the Minister of Education, I remember we closed, the president actually ordered closure when we were rolling the competence-based curriculum in senior one. And by the way, that is the major setback this curriculum has faced. I'm one of the national facilitators of this new curriculum. Like Kirabo was saying that the government should do an overhaul. Surely the competence-based curriculum, if implemented well, it is going to answer some of the problems of the we faced in the training at competencies. Now, the fact that senior ones had just reported and we were starting to roll, somehow, somewhere, we were not yet prepared because we did not have adequate instruction materials in form of books. But during this lockdown, the government under the Ministry of the Ministry of Education did evaluation of books for senior 1 and senior 2, as well as senior 3 and senior 4. And I was actually one of the evaluators in the books, in those workshops. And I'm very sure that the publishers that went through are actually doing supply of these resource materials. So I feel the government is doing something that way, such that learners can find instructional materials at school. And I'm told that the government will give both government and private these books, because under competence-based curriculum, learners should have a learner's book and the teacher should have the teacher's guide.
Edith. Hello?
So I believe in one or the other, the government is doing something to ensure that schools are prepared. Secondly, hello, can you hear me?
Hello, yes, but you're breaking, but please
Can
go
you hear
ahead.
me?
Yes.
Okay, can you hear me now? Yes, what I was saying is that, what I'm saying is that, like Kirabo was saying, that the government should go ahead and make sure that there is an overhaul. The overhaul of the curriculum cannot be as abrupt as now. But with this competence-based curriculum that is rolling, because as per the minister's directive, senior ones will be going to senior 2. So that means that we already have the learners that are going under competence-based curriculum in senior 2. Then recently the ministry started training teachers of senior 3, reminding them of what to do and even the new curriculum. And I want to inform you that I was among the trainers. We were in Chibudi, and there were different core PTCs where this training were taking place. So I feel the government may not be doing the best, but at least they are there. They are doing trainings, and we were told these trainings will go on till. So the government is how some we are doing capacity building, also trying to supply resource materials, although there are delays. And as well, there is this waiving of taxes onto private schools. However, what I'm seeing is the girl child, the girls that have conceived, that have been traumatized, even the boys. I feel the government should come and do much because, Isabella, I want to inform you, the biggest percentage of schools in Uganda, secondary schools, are private schools. And you may find that some of their learners have conceived these girls. And if the government doesn't come in to encourage these private schools to take in these learners the way they are, some of these learners, especially the girls, are likely to be left out. Because with private schools, they have their own rules. So the government should come in to make sure that they should not stop at talking about it, that the pregnant girls should be supported, but should take an extra mile to make sure that even in private schools, these children should be supported, should be welcomed, should be actually given help such that they can continue with learning.
Thank you very much.
Otherwise, if they talk and leave it there, it is not going to help. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I agree with you that if they talk and just leave it there, it's gossip. Nothing much will change. And yet we need the students to go back to school. I'm going to bring in Edith, and my apologies to the non-teachers because, yes, I am quite keen to hear from the administrators. So Edith, as a school, what is are you ready to receive, how prepared are you in regards to COVID guidelines? Because test positivity is increasing. So the chances that after Christmas we are going to have another spike of cases is high. And so if we are opening at a period when spikes are high, are schools now as the schools have the capacity to handle COVID? Has anything changed from the last time that you opened? Over to you, Edith.
Thank you, Isabella. Where I teach, I think we are really ready to receive students. Actually, all the staff we've all been vaccinated, and even in the lockdown, we're able to observe SOPs. Yes, but when you look at it nationally, you worry so much. When you look at schools like, let me say, Chitebi SS, then there is a school somewhere on Entebbe Road that has more than 5,000 students. You wonder what they will do for the students if the 5,000 all came back to school. What would happen if you'd find like a class that has like 120 students, 120 students in a class? What will happen? So I think also the head teachers and other, I think the head teachers are also getting ready. They are trying to do their best to make sure that they start. The truth is, Isabella, we are tired of this situation. So regardless, there must be something that is done. So when I speak for my school, of course, I say we are ready, and and even where there were some loopholes, the administration is trying to improve that and get ready to receive our students, because we have around 1,000 students. We have enough infrastructure, and I know that we can manage we can manage the COVID situation.
But Edith, I'm going to put you on the spot on this, because if you have 1,000 students, has accommodation changed, for example? Edith,
well, yes.
has the accommodation structure changed?
Yes, by the way, there's been an addition there's been a dormitory added. And of course, even the ministry, I don't think all schools, eventually when the spikes are up and everything, I think we are going back to opening in intervals.
Yes, but
if you look at the reality.
Yes, and I hear you on opening in intervals, and so one of the things that schools could show us in terms of preparedness is in terms of spacing for students. And so I'm glad that you added another dormitory, and I hope that would be able to answer the question of spacing. But then also, as a school, do you have a testing plan? And your testing plan would basically be how often will you test? How often will you check? Because this is one of the things that caused the spike the last time that we opened schools.
You know, exactly. Isabella, when you ask those questions, now you worry me. I now see another year of schools being closed because this is a general problem for the entire country. Yes.
It is,
Now,
and
when
again,
you,
it's a general problem, which is why I'm asking if schools are actually, if we're actually prepared. Because, for example, a random, what is it called? A rapid test costs on average 60,000 shillings, and that's on average. In certain places,
yes,
we'll pay close to 110,000 shillings for this.
is it 150?
No, that 150 is for your PCR test. So for PCR test, you'll
Yes.
pay between 150 and 200. And so the question is, for a school that has 1,000 students, what is your testing plan? Because I will tell you that in the last 2 weeks, for example, I have done close to 6 tests. 6 tests. Okay. Half of those tests have been because they needed to be done, and then the other half have been because I have had scares in the last 2-3 weeks. And so if you have scares of that nature in a school, does your school have the capacity to test a student? Or at least on a weekly or bi-weekly basis at 60,000 shillings per student?
There is no school in Uganda that is going to actually manage that.
So are we ready?
We are not ready at all. Unless it is facilitated, what is going to happen? It is going to be thrown back to the parents. Now it is the parents that are going to suffer the consequences of this. You get? So that means the school fees is going to be increased. You're going to pay school fees, then you have to pay for, for this, the COVID SOPs facilitation for your child. So when you look at it as a country, we are indeed not ready.
Yes,
and that's where
and also, are these conversations that you have had with the Ministry of Education about these realities? Because, for example, if a child, if on a desk, one of the kids tests positive, you're going to have to give the other child quarantine for 5 days and then be able to test them after 5 days. So when that child comes back to class, if they are negative, and then another child in the class tests positive, are these conversations that you're having with the ministry?
Well, I think these conversations are ongoing, but I believe that if all people and would think teenagers are also, I'm looking at secondary schools now since I'm a high school teacher, good willing, if everybody can get vaccinated, I think we'll be in better position to open. But the reality is, as a country, we are not there yet.
Okay.
The truth is that we see the flaws where they are, and we'll do anything to make sure that children that actually are safe. And I think the government, they must be working on something. Yeah.
I really hope with you that they're working on something.
They must be working on something. They cannot just open the schools like that. When you look
but they opened them like that the last time. But anyway, Hajara says we are reorganizing ourselves in areas where we feel we hadn't done so much to be better. But now we are worried about the mutated COVID, Omicron, but I think we need to ensure that we open schools. My worry is that most schools don't have adequate facilities. And I agree. And I think as persons who work in schools, one of the conversations that you need to be able to engage government on, maybe through the Uganda National Teachers Union or I think it's the Coalition of Private Teachers Association or Private Schools, that's CUPSTA. One of the conversations that I think we must have with government is around a reduced cost on testing or some form of arrangement with government so that different health centers where schools are located are able to do routine tests at school level, because I'm not sure that our infirmaries in the different schools are equipped to handle this issue. And I'm going to bring in Rebecca, and I know I've kept you quiet for a very long time. Do you want to just submit finally on the preparedness of schools, of parents, even of students to go back to school as we close the show? Oh,
Yes, Isabella.
yes,
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 Isabella.
Rebecca.
Don't worry. I was actually enjoying the conversation from the side.
Yes.
It really felt heartwarming listening to the teachers discuss on an issue so pertinent to them. So for me, just moving forward, I would look at preparedness from the aspect of it's going to be a hard time preparing as parents, as teachers, and especially as students, because we tend to look at it from our perspective as the adults, but also not as the students themselves. But in above all, uh, we still need to go to school. We're going to just have to reorganize different, think of a post-COVID curriculum, and this is where students themselves need to get on board. The parents, the teachers, every actor in this take needs to get on board and start to have conversations on a post-COVID curriculum that's going to work for all students. That's not just for our white collar kind of education, but even in skills development. And I think moving forward, we need to start also encouraging, is it even within schools, skills learning, because I've seen that has become very, very clear during COVID, where we've had children learn a lot. And so I think we need to start incorporating skills classes where maybe we have bakery classes or we have painting classes, because moving forward, we've seen there is a lot of talent has come out. In a way, the mind has started to think further. And I think for me, that is it. But I want to just say we're hanging in there. Definitely going to be a hard ride, but a soft ride
Yeah.
as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Rebecca. Marion, would you like to come in?
Okay. I will go to the question you asked me before we went off, but I thought I had answered it, because one of the things I said that I was in line with what Hajara said. First of all, preparing the schools to take in pregnant teenage mothers is one of the things I said, because yes, like she said, and I also said that there are a lot of rules in these different schools against teenage pregnancies. But also perhaps what I would add is that the need for sex education, because most of these young people, the truth is, yes, some of them were cases of defilement, but some, you will find that a good number of them were cases also of curiosity. You know, these are young adolescents at home, they are alone, they're curious about their bodies. No one has told them about maybe the dangers of sex. And if they've told them that, sex is this forbidden thing in our society that we do not talk about, can we also have an honest conversation about contraceptives for these young people? I know it's a very problematic thing when they start saying you're teaching them bad manners, but your kids are having sex, whether you have taught them bad manners or not. Their bodies, like nature demands that they have desires, and those desires are fulfilled, whether you like it, whether you keep them locked in at home, because you would think that home is the safest place and they'll never go astray at home. But we have also realized that home is not safe. Actually, schools are more safe than homes, because at least at school, they're under strict supervision. So how do we protect our young people when they're at home? But also, people have talked about the overhaul of the curriculum. I will also, and what I mentioned, but also in addition to encouraging the overhaul of the curriculum, can we attach value to the jobs that we think are important in our society? Do we have to wait for teachers and doctors to go on strike, to take to the streets before we attach value to the kind of labor that they give? Should they cry out for help? Should we see them getting into miserable situations before we can attach value? Let us increase the salaries of these people that we see are essential workers. Can we increase the salaries of teachers so that It's one of the things that can motivate them to come back, increase their salaries. Can there be a subsidy? Can there be privileges attached to being a teacher? There used to be those privileges. I don't know if they're still there, where a teacher would be entitled to a house. You get quarters to stay in, maybe those small allowances here and there. You get. Can they come back? I know, for example, in Makerere, there has been a constant cutting on lecturers' allowances. And I think that becomes so problematic, because then why else entice someone to become a lecturer, or why else entice someone to become, and that's why they're always on strike. We demand for better pay, we demand for better. Now, for me as a student, seeing a lecturer always on strike, a teacher always on, a doctor always, why would I want to become them? So attach value to the things you think are important. You cannot just say that teachers and doctors are important to you when you're not attaching value to them.
Yes, that's true. Yes. Thank you very much, Marion. I will go to Edith. Would you like to make your closing submissions?
Yes, thank you, Isabella. I would like to just encourage the government to do right by the education system, invest in it, because I know there are so many other sectors that bring money to the country. But at the end of the day, when our education system is lame, if we don't have, Isabella just challenged me, and are we really ready? Can schools be able to actually pay PCR tests? Can they be able to test students weekly, or to make sure they are safe and all that? So I therefore would like to, to challenge the government to invest in education and, invest in the teachers and invest in these schools, so that we can have, because without a better education, what are we as a country?
That is true.
Yes, without education, if we just have like only, just if we just train people to just live by the streets, do what they need, just have that street smartness without academic excellency, what is going to happen to this country? Yes, and then also, it's good to meet Hajara here, who is part of decision making in education. There is need to also have a psychosocial support training for the teachers. Before these children are actually brought back to school, are teachers ready to receive them? There is a time we went for a training after the first lockdown, and they were telling us how we are supposed to handle these students, the learners, as when they come back. But for the very first time in Uganda's life, can we have organization? Can we have the ministry? Can we have the policymakers and all that? Can we have stakeholders worry about the mental state of a teacher? Can we see that there is a psychosocial support for teachers? Otherwise, if that is not done, then you're just going to end up with, I don't want to say weak teachers, but you're going to end up with this kind of teachers who don't give a damn whether your child is okay or not. They'll go to class, throw the content, do what they're supposed to do, and that attachment, that mutual attachment that has always been there between teachers and students is going to die out. Just like in other lines of work, teachers are just going to go there, go to class. For example, I go to class, teach, get out, mark books, without even caring about the other development part of your child. So it is very important before you look at, teaching teachers how to support, to acknowledge these pregnant girls. Can we have teachers accept what went through? Can we have the teachers be prepared? Can we have their mindset changed? Can we empower teachers first? Because when you have an empowered teacher, you have an empowered nation.
Okay,
when a teacher is
very much, Edith. Yes. Yeah.
I just wanted to say, when a teacher is empowered, then you don't need to tell them how to treat. the children or anything, because these are things they have trained in and they know better. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me again.
Thank you very much, Edith. We're going to have the final submission from Hajara. And yes, over to you, Hajara.
Yes, Isabella, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you so much. I would like to thank you for making me part of this discussion. It's very however, my conclusion, it is the responsibility of is parent, be it the teachers, be it the director of studies, be it the owners of schools, the government, and even the civil society organization. Let us support one another to ensure that education moves on, rolls on. It pains to hear that Uganda is one of those countries where schools have not opened. I want to assure you, this is going to have an impact on the human resource we are going to produce. I don't know in how many years to come. It is going to take a long time. So it is a responsibility of all of us to make sure that despite the fact that we are affected by COVID, we roll on, we open. Secondly, I would request teachers to be positive, and even parents, let us be positive to make sure that we do what we are supposed to do. There was a teacher who was saying jokingly that these parents forgot us. Now it is time. We are going to see. They are coming. They've started calling us. I think you hear the bias. Teachers are biased. Teachers have lost confidence in themselves. Teachers are depressed. And even, by the way, some of the policies have made teachers sidelined or biased. I don't know whether you see that, specifically, when the president supports the science teachers, they say how the arts teachers feel sidelined. Secondly, the way learners have seen us struggle in chapatis, bricklaying, you can imagine how these learners are going to take us when we go back to school. Some of these learners have even acted us on TikTok, on social media. I don't know whether you've seen that.
We have seen so many of them.
Exactly. So there is need for psychosocial support, like my sister has said. We need to work on teachers' attitude, and Ministry of Education and government should do the monitoring, should do the support, not only to government schools, but even private schools. And what hurts me most is that the government is holding with gloves the issue of the girl child. Ladies and gentlemen, the issue of the girl child should be held with an iron hand to support the girl child, especially in rural areas, in internally displaced camps who are recently in Ajumani. These girls are pregnant. These girls have children. These girls have been traumatized. Then lastly, all of us have been traumatized by COVID. Some of these learners that are coming back lost their loved ones. They lost their parents. And in a painful way, they sent off their relatives in a painful way. So there is trauma. We need to work on even on psychology of the learners. We need to show them that education is the future. So we need together. And together, if we support, I believe we shall maneuver COVID. And lastly, schools should be from COVID. They could hide because they don't want to be closed. Let us be honest. Let us be vigilant. Let us check ourselves where things went wrong. We patch them up and we do the best. I want to thank you so much and wish my brothers and sisters a festive season, preparing to go back come January 2022. God bless you.
God bless you too. Thank you very much, Hajara, and thank you to the entire panel, that is Edith, Hajara, Marion, and Rebecca, for joining us. This is a conversation that I don't think is about to end. We'll probably have another one in January and talk about the realities now that school has opened. Hopefully, we will have the same panel to evaluate how this has gone. That notwithstanding, the challenges with opening are very many, but yes, we've been closed already for 2 years and we must open, but we must also be careful as we open. And so once again, thank you very much on behalf of Civic Space TV. And I'd like to wish everyone who is watching a Merry Christmas. That is on behalf of we at Civic Space TV, but also on behalf of my fellow co-panelists, so actually co-moderators who are not on this call, that is Trisha Gloria Nagare and Maria Alessi. We would like to wish you all a very happy and Merry Christmas with your families, and continue to keep safe. The pandemic is still ongoing, COVID is still real, and we hope that you'll be able to enjoy the festivities. Thank you and have a lovely, lovely afternoon. Bye-bye.